The Cleveland Torso Murderer, 1934 to 1938, USA. In the 1930s, while Cleveland was trying to rebuild itself from the wreckage of the Great Depression, something was hunting in the shadows of its poorest neighborhoods. It left behind bodies, or rather, pieces of bodies, heads without torsos, torsos without heads, limbs arranged with a precision that suggested not frenzy but intention, not madness but method. 12 victims, possibly more, 0 convictions, and the most famous detective in America, brought in specifically to catch this killer, failed completely. This is the story of the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. To understand where the killing happened, you have to understand what Cleveland looked like in the early 1930s. The Depression had carved the city open. The steel mills and factories that had made it one of America's industrial giants were running at a fraction of their capacity. Thousands of men had lost everything: their jobs, their homes, their names. They drifted into the city's margins, settling in Hoovervilles and shanty camps along the rail corridors. The most significant of these corridors was a long, shallow ravine that cut through the east side of the city, running toward the Cuyahoga River. It was called Kingsbury Run. It was a place where the desperate and the invisible gathered, where men with no address and no documentation lived outside the reach of official records, where, it turned out, a person could disappear without anyone filing a report. The killer understood this. He chose his hunting ground with care. September 5, 1934. A young woman is walking on Euclid Beach on the shore of Lake Erie when she notices something half buried in the sand. It is the lower half of a female torso. The upper half is found a few days later, not far away. The woman is never identified. She becomes known simply as the Lady of the Lake, the first known victim, though she will not be connected to the larger series for some time. There are no fingerprints because the skin on her hands has been carefully removed. The decapitation has been performed with skill. The coroner notes that the cuts are clean, deliberate. Whoever did this knew what they were doing with a blade. The city files it as a curiosity and moves on. September 23, 1935, Kingsbury Run. 2 young boys playing near the ravine make a discovery that no child should ever have to make. They find a human head, wrapped in a pair of trousers, hidden in the weeds at the edge of the ravine. Police search the area and find, 40 feet away, a second head. Then the bodies, or rather the headless torsos to which the heads belong, buried nearby. 2 men, both decapitated, both drained of blood, both castrated. One is eventually identified as Edward Andrassy, a young man with a criminal record and a history of hanging around the wrong people. The other is never identified. The decapitation, forensic examiners note, was performed with considerable skill. The vertebrae were cut cleanly. This was not someone hacking in a panic. This was someone who had done this before, or who had studied how to do it, or both. The city is unsettled, but not yet terrified. 2 unidentified men in a ravine. Perhaps it is a gangland killing. Perhaps it is something explainable. The police hold on to that possibility the way you hold on to a railing at the top of a staircase. January 26, 1936. A butcher named Charles Page discovers a basket near the Jackass Hill section of Kingsbury Run. Inside the basket, parts of a woman, arms, thighs. The rest of her is found scattered across the ravine over the following days. She is later identified as Florence Polillo, a 40-something woman who worked in bars and had a complicated drifting life. The kind of life that made her like so many of the killer's victims, someone whose disappearance would not immediately trigger alarm bells. She is victim number 3, possibly number 4, depending on how the Lady of the Lake is counted. Cleveland is paying attention now. June 5, 1936, Kingsbury Run again. A young man named Gomez finds a severed head sitting at the bottom of the ravine, the skull resting against the earth almost peacefully. The body is found nearby. Male, unidentified. The decapitation is, as always, precise. The body has been drained of blood before the dismemberment, which means the victim was killed somewhere else, somewhere private, somewhere the killer had the time and the space and the tools to work. He is not killing in the ravine, he is depositing there. It is his display case. July 22nd, 1936. A teenage boy finds another headless body near the Big Creek area. Male, unidentified, castrated. The pattern is now unmistakable and unmistakably terrifying. Cleveland is a city of nearly 1 million people, and somewhere within it, in a house, a building, a room, a man is dismembering human beings with clinical efficiency and then carrying their pieces out to the edge of the city to be found. He is organized. He is bold. He is leaving bodies like calling cards. The city demands action. In late 1935, Eliot Ness arrives in Cleveland. He is already famous, the man who took down Al Capone's bootlegging operation in Chicago with his team of untouchables. He is brought to Cleveland as the new director of public safety, with a mandate to clean up a police department riddled with corruption and to restore order to a city that feels like it is coming apart. He is handsome, charismatic, ambitious, and 32 years old. He is exactly what Cleveland's city fathers want to put in front of journalists. He takes on the torso murderer as a personal crusade. He assigns detectives. He builds a dedicated investigative unit. He throws significant resources at the case. None of it is enough. September 10th, 1936. 2 children discover a severed head near the Kingsbury Run railroad tracks. The body, once assembled, is a young white male. Once again, no identification. Once again, precise dismemberment. Once again, the blood-drained quality that tells investigators this man was killed elsewhere, that somewhere in Cleveland there is a room that does not look like a room. It looks like an operating theater. And the man who works inside it is extraordinarily careful about cleaning up after himself. February 23rd, 1937. The Cuyahoga River, a woman's lower torso washes ashore. Over the following weeks, more pieces of the same woman surface along the river and near the lakeshore. She is assembled over time like a terrible puzzle, never identified. The killer is expanding his dumping ground, no longer just Kingsbury Run, but the river, the lake, the city's waterways. He is adapting. He is, investigators realize with dread, learning. June 6, 1937. More bones, more body parts, found in the river and along its banks. Another female victim, another absence of identity, another absence of a face that anyone in Cleveland recognizes. These are the invisible people, the ones who existed at the edges of documented life, and it is exactly that invisibility that the killer has weaponized. July 6, 1937. A burlap bag is pulled from the Cuyahoga River containing a partial skeleton. Male. The bones have been cleaned deliberately, methodically. This is not decomposition. Someone scrubbed these bones, prepared them, packaged them in burlap, and deposited them in a river. The detectives working this case have seen a great deal. They have not seen anything quite like this. April 8, 1938. A woman's lower half is found wrapped in a man's coat near the lakefront. The upper body is found 2 weeks later. She is the 12th official victim, or the 11th. The counting varies depending on which remains are attributed to the same killer, which is itself a question no one can answer with certainty, because so many victims lack identities, because there is no database of missing persons to cross-reference, because the people who knew these victims often didn't report them missing, either because they didn't know they were missing, or because they didn't trust the police, or because they had already lost track of them before the killer found them. The investigation is not going well. Ness is frustrated. His detectives are frustrated. The city is frightened in the particular, grinding way you get frightened when a threat is shapeless and sourceless, and the people whose job it is to protect you have no answers. August 16th, 1938. Ness makes a decision that will define his legacy in Cleveland in ways he does not anticipate. Acting on the belief that the killer is operating out of the shantytown that has grown in the flats, the industrial lowlands near the river, he authorizes a raid. Police sweep through the camp. They round up dozens of men. They burn the shanties to the ground. They arrest vagrants and question them and turn up nothing. The men of Kingsbury Run scatter into the city. A few are found later, having died of exposure. The raid is a disaster, ethically and investigatively. It destroys the community that might have yielded witnesses. It hardens resentment against the police. It produces zero leads. And it ends any real hope of catching the killer through conventional investigation. After 1938, the official murder series stops. No more bodies attributed to the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run surface within the city. Whether the killer died, moved, was institutionalized, or simply stopped, no one knows. But the investigation does not end cleanly. It ends in a strange, inconclusive twilight. Ness, working privately and without official resources in the early 1940s, becomes convinced he has identified the killer. His suspect is a man named Francis Sweeney, a doctor, a former surgeon, a large and physically powerful man with an intimate knowledge of anatomy. Crucially, Sweeney is also the cousin of a powerful Democratic congressman, which Ness believes may explain why certain investigative channels had gone inexplicably quiet. Sweeney is also, by the time Ness focuses on him, in a severe mental decline, his life fragmented by alcoholism and what appears to be serious psychiatric illness. In May 1938, Ness and his team conduct secret, off-the-books interrogations of Sweeney over several days, including, according to later accounts, the use of an early polygraph machine. The results of those sessions, by Ness's own private account, convince him that Sweeney is the killer. But the evidence is not sufficient for criminal charges. There is no physical evidence tying Sweeney to any of the murders. The polygraph is inadmissible, and bringing a case against the cousin of a congressman requires something beyond reasonable doubt. Sweeney is never charged. He voluntarily commits himself to a veterans' hospital in 1938. Some investigators believe this was arranged, a way of removing a problem without the messiness of a trial. He will spend most of the rest of his life in various institutions. He dies in 1964. From inside those institutions, over the years, Sweeney sends Ness strange, taunting postcards. They are signed. They are not confessions. They are something worse. The kind of communication that says, "I know that you know, and neither of us can do anything about it." Ness keeps the postcards until he dies. He never speaks publicly about Sweeney. He carries the case with him, unsolved, to the end of his life. Eliot Ness, the man who brought down Capone, never solves the most important case of his career. He leaves Cleveland in 1942. He attempts a run for mayor in 1947 and loses badly, his reputation worn down by personal scandals and by the long, unresolved shadow of the torso murderer. He dies in 1957, largely broke, largely forgotten. A decade before the book, The Untouchables resurrects his Capone legend for a new generation. He never catches the butcher. No one does. The victims, 12 of them officially, possibly more, remain mostly nameless. The lady of the lake, the tattooed man, the woman found in pieces in the river. They had lives before they became evidence, before they became case numbers and files that were never closed. They came from the margins of Depression-era America, from the places where survival was the only project and visibility was a luxury. The killer understood that these lives would leave small ripples. He was right. What remains after all the investigations and all the theories and all the years is this. Somewhere in 1930s Cleveland, a man with a surgeon's skill and a killer's patience built himself a private world in which human beings were materials. He worked methodically over years and left behind just enough evidence to terrify a city and just little enough to never be caught. He walked Cleveland's streets. He rode its streetcars. He passed people on sidewalks who had no idea what lived behind his eyes, and in the end, he simply walked out of history.